moving now to our AMA. So I would like to invite everybody to show their faces with their webcams, but please can you stay muted until I ask you to unmute, because otherwise it's going to be a total chaos. Look at all these people showing up. This is like amazing, right? I can't believe we have so many talented people together here tonight. This is a dream come true, isn't it? So wow, look at that. Okay, so I even see people that weren't like live in the event. I can't like present you all. I'm so sorry. It's just too many people. So let's just start with the first question. If you like to answer the question, just raise your hand, and then we'll make like a little game out of it. Who's Dan? Are you already raising your hand? Oh no, you were just adjusting your hat. Okay. So the first question is, will Swarm be able to handle massive adoption? I think this is like the scaling question, right? I can't imagine why people are afraid of scaling issues here. So what if a new dApp uses Swarm for storage and that millions of users request for data on Swarm? Millions of users. That's like a dream. Will it scale nicely? So who would like to address scaling issues that I don't think we have? Ah, Rinke. Yes, Rinke, I give you the word, please. Answer this question.
Well, of course. Like, otherwise we wouldn't start building it, right? So this is a very simple answer. I think the design of the architecture and how we thought about it to build it, all is built in order to support massive use cases and massive scalability. So it's really deep down into the design of the architecture, the scalability is implemented. So, yeah.
So basically a simple yes from Rinke. This is what you will have to be happy with. Thank you, Rinke. Yeah, this is a very interesting question, I think. Does the alpha include the swear and swindle storage guarantees? In other words, like, does this, oh, Daniel already, everybody's just answering the question by shaking their heads, like, no. So maybe I can change the question a little bit to when will we see the actual incentivization in there? Victor, is this mean? No, Victor, you don't have to answer this if you don't want, of course. Rinke again, or Victor? No, Victor. Sorry, Rinke, Victor.
Go ahead, Rinke.
Victor is handing the words to Rinke. Rinke.
I just put up my hat. If I know the answer, you don't always have to give the mic to me. But
I won't, Rinke. I won't.
The bandwidth incentives were already implemented on the Swarm code base, and they are planned in the roadmap to be somewhere in the end of August. So at that moment, you'll be able to try out running the B network with incentives on testnet at that moment.
Thank you so much, Rinke. This question is again about, people are asking all these questions about, it's all money here. This is what people are curious about. What is the estimated cost to store, for example, 1 kilobyte of data, and how does this cost scale with the size of the data? And what is the minimum guaranteed lifetime of my data? So basically it's about how much does it cost to store 1 kilobyte, and what is like the persistence thing that we have going on. I hope I see everybody on the screen, by the way. No, oh my God, there's a second screen with so many people. Okay, Daniel, go ahead.
Well, first of all, the costs are going to be not just by size, but also by time. So if you want to store your kilobyte for 2 years, it's going to be more expensive than having to store it only for 1 year. So that's just a clarification about the dimensionality of this thing. We expect, but it's pure speculation on my part, it's not something that is easy to know in advance, that prices, especially initially, will be probably comparable to commonly used centralized solutions. And the reason that my guess is because people need to coordinate on something, like there needs to be some starting point, and this looks like the obvious starting point. How it's going to evolve over time, it really depends on what value people place on censorship resistance, how fierce the competition is going to be, and so on. So about the evolution of the price, it's again difficult to speculate, but as storage devices become cheaper and cheaper, and hopefully more and more providers join the network, I think that the overall trend is going to be down. It's going to, so the same amount of tokens will buy you more and more storage for more and more time. But finally, and I think this is an important thing to drive home, the cost of storing your information really depends a little bit on the nature of demand for this information. So if what you're storing is something very popular in high demand, it will cost you nothing because it will be always cached, because the bandwidth incentives will make sure that all swarm nodes that come across this information will cache it. And even that process of caching will be enough for your information to stay on Swarm. So if you publish something that the whole world is interested in, it will cost you nothing.
That's amazing.
That's one extreme.
I think that's exactly what we're looking for. That's amazing.
Right. So
Thank you so much, Danny.
That's on one extreme. On the other extreme is information that nobody cares about. It will still be stored on Swarm. Think, for example, your encrypted backup. Definitely nobody except for you will ever download it, and hopefully you will not download it either, because you will never need it.
Yes.
So that's the other extreme. That's the really unpopular information. However, you need really strong guarantees that it's going to be there. So that is going to be the most expensive kind of information to store. So these are the two extremes, and you will find everything in between, I think.
Thank you so much, Daniel. That's a very comprehensive answer. Next one, I'm just gonna assign this one to Jordi, because I am the moderator of this thing, so I can be a little bit egoistical. Jordi, the question is, can Swarm benefit from the recent explosion of zero-knowledge tech? And if so, how and when? I know I love hearing you talk about ZK stuff, so go ahead. What can Swarm do for ZK?
Well, as you know, the scaling strategy of ZK rollups has two parts. One is the zero knowledge, which actually you can validate any amount of transactions with a time constant. So you can validate theoretically 1 million transactions in 10 milliseconds, which is very cool. And this is a key piece of the scaling system. But the other part is the data availability. You know, all these, so it doesn't matter if you can process, if you can guarantee that a number of transactions are valid, if these transactions are not available to the people, because there is a very easy attack that's an operator that's just processing all this data, that keeps the data for themselves. So we need a sort of data availability. Right now, there is two kinds of rollups. One is what we call ZK rollup. That's we put this data on chain, so that's okay. Let's put this data in a compressed way on chain. That's what ZK rollup is about. The other is where we put the name of Palladium, Vitalik, and all of the people just come out to this name, and this mainly means that you put the data off chain. Where do you put? Right now, the current solutions, they are putting in some kind of federation, you know, nodes somewhere. I'm not sure, you know, I'm not an expert, and this is maybe an answer for you, but a solution of storing this data, this would give the decentralization and at the same time could bring the scalability. Of course, this data needs to be like, it's not compared to maybe a video or to other sort of storage, it's not a huge data, but what's required is that it must be available yes or yes. You know, it says we need this data availability guarantees. So here is, okay, and maybe it's I was trying to answer, but maybe it's a question for you. It's like, do you think that Swarm will be ready for handling this kind of information that's highly available, small pieces, but highly available, that you can, you know, you have the guarantee that the data is always going to be available?
Jordi, you can't do this. I mean, we ask you a question and we want you to explain stuff to us, and then you raise more questions. This is highly inappropriate. Still, I'm gonna throw it to Victor because this is actually a question in the AMA. Like, well, yeah, but what Jordi said. Victor, can you answer that, please?
Yes, of course, the promise is that it will be able to handle that exactly. Because, so one thing is that we introduced this tit for tat accounting, that you might call a solution for bandwidth and incentivization, or otherwise like basically a scheme to efficiently pool the bandwidth resources. And that's taking care of like message passing between peers in a peer-to-peer method. But then we have another incentivization scheme which starts from the idea of it's one we really like the word analogies for our kind of incentive structures, and sister to the checkbook, which works as a checkbook. We also have the concept of a postage stamp. Postage stamp originally used to be started as a one-off cost attached to a piece of data that you upload to Swan, and primarily serves to mitigate spamming the network and thereby expunging basically old content just right away. But also by attaching postage stamps of the different kind of values, we also indicate priority, much like priority layer, just in more granular fashion. And basically, depending on the balance that you associate in this postage stamp or batch of postage stamps related to your churn, you can calibrate how much the nodes we store it. Basically, you calibrate a positive incentive for farmer nodes to get redistributed some of the in-payments that came in the form of postage stamp. Now let's return to this for a second, but with a slight remark. Of course, there's a stronger guarantee as well, whereby there's going to be insurers or staked storers, special subsystem, special subset of the store nodes, which actually can make stronger and more reliable promises of storing particular information until a particular expiry date by taking a higher premium compared to the simple storage nodes, but at the same time taking more responsibility by basically staking their deposit that is frozen on the contract, and that's what Danny mentioned. So this will eventually be the swear and swindle part of file insurance, which takes care of the tragedy of commons of only positive rewards. But to return to the previous question, like how ZK methodology can first use by Swan, there's a very interesting avenue for collaboration there, synergy there, because with the postage stamps, the simplest witness solution for attaching a postage stamp to a chunk actually reveals not necessarily an identity, because it can be pseudo identity. At least it creates linkability of various chunks together, which leaks information about files and uploads. And the ZK type of inclusion proof, I don't want to go into details necessarily here, but the ZK constructs can help increasing the anonymity and privacy features of such storage stamp assignments. So I hope it was not too technical. So basically, ZK Slack can really benefit from postage stamps. And on the other hand, yes, we can in the end, with the normally incentivized Swan, we will be able to store all this data and fulfill it and guarantee in various ways there.
Thank you, Victor. It wasn't too technical for me. I don't think this. Also, our audience, I think, is used to a lot of technical stuff. I am getting a fantasy about listening to you and Jordi at the same time, left and right in my ears. But we don't have time for that. Rinke, a question for you again. I'm so sorry. I don't want to like bother you this much this evening, but yeah, this is, I think, the perfect question for you. What was the, I'll rephrase it a little bit, but what was like the hardest part to build, to solve, to implement for you and the dev team? And maybe you want to give the word to someone who really, really worked hard.
Yeah, so I will answer it now, but I will definitely also want to pass the ball to somebody else. But I think if we're talking about Swarm, perhaps the hardest part is the research which goes into designing the system and designing all the components and actually also the incentives and the token economics and figuring out how you're expecting that users are going to interact with those applications, because it's a decentralized application. It's not something which I run on my laptop and it is kind of known how it's going to behave. No, we are just building a node, and this node is going to interact with other computers which are all around the world, and we cannot make assumptions about how those nodes are going to behave. So this is very difficult, and this is creating an application which is intended to work in a network of other decentralized applications which are just all interacting, and the thinking about this and the reasoning makes it very hard. But actually, I'm not the right person to answer, because the ones, I think Janos, he can answer this question.
Please, Janos.
Yeah, so, it's easy when you know how and what you are building. I can tell, for example, that we iterated a lot on syncing protocols. And actually, we discovered that we have to have two of them, and so regarding stuff that is released in B currently, I would say that we spent a significant amount of time iterating how our syncing protocols would behave in order to achieve balanced replication and efficient distribution of chunks within their neighborhood. But in general, I also agree with Rinke about the complexity of incentivization. So this is a huge area of protocols and well, our knowledge is still at the phase that we have to iterate on more, but much better situation than before, and also addressing the complexity. We have a lot of protocols, and a lot of protocols will be added, so a lot of time was invested in deciding what how to modularize and address maintainability of a complex system like this.
Awesome, thank you, Janos. The next question might have a very quite a simple answer. I did not see any gas transactions. Swarm is still free and does not require any Ether. Is that correct? Someone's asking. Come on, guys. Who wants to answer this one? No? Rinke, not again. You're like this kid I had in high school in my classroom was always like, yeah, I know the answer. Nobody? Oh my God. Danny. I'm sorry. There are too many people on my screen. My screen is, I should buy a bigger screen, like Jordi said. So Daniel.
So we would like to make it as transparent as possible. So you're not going to need Ether in order to join the network, but you will need to provide service on an altruistic fashion. So the first few things, so if you enter without Ether, you will need to do the first few steps. And then with the first payment, you're also going to receive sufficient Ether for gas. So basically, from a user experience and onboarding perspective, the answer is that we managed to engineer the initial Ether out of out of it. So you can enter the system without getting Ether from elsewhere. But of course, since this is on Ethereum, at least the part that's on Ethereum, it will require ETH to pay for gas, but you will be able to earn that Ether early on when you join the network. Of course, for Ether, you can always substitute the native token of whatever other EVM-based blockchain we're talking about. So on the RSK network, it's going to be RBTC. On Ethereum Classic, it will be ETC. But the native token is unavoidable on EVM-based blockchains, but we managed to solve the onboarding problem.
That's awesome. I loved how you engineered Ether out of Swarm. And next question is maybe, and I really want to ask this question to Gregor. Gregor, can you talk a bit about the Fair Data Society and the Fair Data principles that are like almost like inherent, I would say, to Swarm? This is like one of the last questions we can do, Gregor.
I can answer it if you will help me.
I will definitely help you if you want
Okay.
to. Yes. What do you want me to do?
Well, you're from Fair Data Society, so
yes, I am.
It's kind of the initiative of Fair Data Society is kind of like a complementary. It's kind of continuous with Swarm in a way, and it's like connecting the social with the tech. So if we speak before about the narrow waste and Swarm enabling this ecosystem, Swarm is neutral. It's all about neutrality. But when we as developers, if we think about what kind of applications we are going to build that touch upon the human, we also need to start to think about things like ethics and how to proceed. And Fair Data Society addresses this. At the same time, Fair Data Society as an ecosystem initiative wants to basically just be proactive with also helping developers with libraries, best practices, etc. What would you add?
I would add that it is goddamn time people make money on their own data instead of all these giant corporations doing so and then trading our data for money on Wall Street. I think these days should be over pretty soon. So that would be my answer to that. Yeah. Anyway. So maybe the last question, unless someone tells me we can keep going. But the last question would be, how does Swarm compare with Filecoin, IPS, MadeSafe, Storage, all these other projects who are doing decentralized storage with sort of an incentivization layer? Who wants to take this on? I hope I'm not missing. Yes, Gregor again, maybe. No? Yeah.
So I don't want to actually answer it, but Gabriel seems a bit shy, And
yes, I know, right? I was just looking like I had the exact same feeling. Gabriel, can you just speak about anything? Because I love to hear you talk.
Me?
Yes, I know this is probably the worst introduction ever that I just did.
No, as I said before, we believe in building a user-centric internet, and we believe that users should have the right to choose, right? I think what we're trying to do here is creating the storage layers interoperable among them and the blockchain layers as well. And hopefully together, we're also going to be able to bring the communities together. And this is something that we at RSK have been pushing forward for many years now. And I'm super excited about this collaboration with the Swarm team because it's a clear example on how when we have a goal in mind, and I mean, the technology that we are using, I mean, it's useless if it doesn't have a purpose, as Jordi said before. So I think what unites all of us here in the panel and the audience is this goal in mind that we are crazy enough to believe that a better world is possible, and definitely a censorship resistance and the possibility of store our personal data and take care of it, and not become a product anymore to be sold in the markets. It's critical for this better world that we hope, but it won't happen by itself. Actually, maybe if we don't do something very strong and very quickly, the world is going to go to a worse situation than it was before. And we've seen this as part of COVID, and just not only corporations profiting out of the users, but also governments surveilling ourselves and just going. No one is going to stop them unless we, as a global community, as a global network of individuals around the world, just tell them this is enough and that we want to build a different world. So I think this collaboration and this amazing group of people here are just an example of that, a better future is possible.
Gabriel, you never disappoint. Thank you so much for that answer. I think we all get even more inspired for working towards this shared goal we have. I know we all have so many things to say, and we have to round it up somewhere. I believe this is a beautiful moment to end the show. Dan, you agree? I see. Gabriel, thank you so much for these words. Jordi as well. It was so inspiring to hear you, as always. Everybody, by the way. So yeah, still, again, it's just some housekeeping. Please join our Telegram group so we can continue this conversation. Please keep asking all your questions on Reddit, Twitter, etc. You will find this thing on YouTube. Maybe you're watching this on YouTube right now, or maybe you will be watching this in 10 years from now, and then you are wondering what YouTube is. Well, YouTube was a very centralized video storage kind of thing before we had Swarm running the internet. With that, I say goodbye to you all from Antwerp. I loved this show, this event, and I hope we get to do this again in the future. Thank you so much, everybody, and see you soon.